The tragedy in New Zealand is a perfect example for another episode of liberal hypocrisy. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. Well, by now, I'm guessing everyone's has heard of this tragic situation that happened in New Zealand, in which an idiot went up inside of a mosque and killed, I believe it was 49 people, I believe, but it was 40, almost 50 something people killed, and it's a very heinous act. This is clearly a terrorist act enacted by a complete a-hole. And my thoughts and prayers goes out to the family members and those people who are affected by this. The friends and family. And in this time, I give all prayers to them and hope everything is going well for them for this heinous act that took place. Now, where's the hypocrisy in this? Well, if you do a Google search on this and you look at the liberal mainstream leftist articles and you check the commonalities between the links, and it's going to be something like you'll see terrorist act, right-wing extremist, white nationalist, racist white person. In other words, they're going to throw out all the evil negative words to make this situation sound as bad as they possibly can, which it was a terrible, heinous act. And it was a terrorist act. We can all agree. This guy needs to be thrown under the jail, and he needs to, basically, they need to throw the book at him to the full extent of the law for this act that he perpetrated. But meanwhile, I remember, I believe this was in 2016 or so, back when this guy, the Muslim guy, in Orlando when shot up the Pulse, that gay nightclub. And remember looking at the mainstream media and the articles, and you can even go check it today or Google it today. And what are you gonna see in the articles? Well, all they told us was basically his name. He's a security guard, and basically a picture of his face. That's it. I mean, they bent over backwards. The mainstream media, they did somersaults and gymnastics trying to avoid labeling this as a terrorist act or Islamic extremist act or anything at all involving anything negative in Islam and Muslim, and they didn't say anything about it. That's the three pieces of information that we got. They didn't call him a Islamic extremist or anything terrorist or anything that makes Islam look bad. They refused to do it. And it was the same with I remember the situation, I believe in California or in Santa Clara, I believe, in which the Muslim couple that wasn't in the country that long, shot up an office, and I believe it was an office party. Again, they did everything they power. They tried their best to avoid any mention of Islam and terrorism or the fact that these people were Muslims in committing terrorist acts. They bent over backwards to hide that. And then you had the situations going on in Europe where these Muslims were driving trucks into people. In London, they drove a truck into a whole bunch of people on the bridge. And in Spain, they had this holiday event or whatever, and a guy drove the truck into the crowd of people, killing people. And the mainstream media, when it's Islam or Muslims, they avoid any mention of terrorism or terrorist act. They do their best to try to avoid it. And in many cases, these guys will shout Ali Akbar, or these people shout Ali Akbar, God is Allah, which is a common phrase that you hear spoken when these Muslims commit these terrorist acts, and they will still avoid labeling Islam as a terrorist or these guys as terrorists, or even use the word terror. They avoid that to try to not make Islam look bad. Meanwhile, when it comes down to something with white folks, they will immediately come out and tell you the race, immediately call it for what it is. And that's the hypocrisy of the left. Conservatives, we call it a spade. So it doesn't matter what's the race of the person, doesn't matter who they are, what their skin color, what they did. If it's a terrorist act, we'll say it's a terrorist act. If it's some guy claiming to be a conservative and commits a terrorist act, we'll say it's wrong and we'll call it a terrorist act. But the left seem to have an issue with that. They seem to, the hypocrisy amongst these people is just ridiculous. This was a terrorist act, just like all the rest of the terrorist acts. We have Christians in Islamic countries are just being persecuted all the time. Christians are being killed, churches are being burned, and we never hear about it. And if it does, they do their best to try to not associate any type of terror or negative with it, stigmatism as much as they can. But when it comes down to white people, they go full force. I think that's complete hypocrisy. And I'm glad that they do this. And the reason why I'm glad they're committing this hypocrisy is so that people will know. The more they do this, the more they expose the people to who they really are. And the people who are on the fence can see this for what it is. They were like, man, what people are saying is true about the mainstream media. But then again, if you doubt me, then go look up any of these incidents and see how the mainstream media, the leftist media, try to cover up any mention of anything negative or any terrorist act when it's some type of Muslim, or hell, even Antifa. When Antifa, who commit some of the most violent acts in this country, attack people, they cover it up. But if it's some conservative person, Charlottesville, they hype it up and make it seem like it's the end of the worst thing ever in the world. But then again, just liberal hypocrisy. I usually say black hypocrisy, but hypocrisy is really a thing of not just blacks, but it's a thing of the left. And I will keep pointing it out because it's ridiculous and how obvious it is. It just gets to a point where they just don't care anymore. Man, they just outright blatant with the hypocrisy. But yet another episode of another example of liberal hypocrisy for y'all. And as always, y'all, until next time.